Police arrested 280 climate change protesters that brought central London to a standstill yesterday. 2 further weeks of demonstrations are planned as Extinction Rebellion activists demand governments take urgent action on climate change. Well, the aim has been to block all routes into Westminster at protests at 12 separate locations in London, including, as you can see, Trafalgar Square, Horse Guards Parade, Westminster Bridge, the Home Office, the Treasury, also the Mall. Sky's Ali Fortescue reports.
OK, here is the tent for a couple of days.
This is Karen's home for the week.
It's pretty comfortable, it's not bad.
A sleeping bag and a view of Downing Street. She says she has everything she needs, except the attention of her neighbours in Parliament.
I've got kids at home, you know, they're not interested in me being, they tease me about it now. It's kind of not very old. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I'm doing this for my children, but I'm not just doing it for my children, I'm doing it for everybody's children, to be honest.
This isn't a normal protest. Apologies come easily from Extinction Rebellion campaigners, but they say disruption is their only option.
Consider yourselves at the vanguard.
2 miles away at the historic Smithfield Market, a call to action from wildlife presenter Chris Packham and another group joining the movement.
Never doubt.
This is Animal Rebellion, vegan campaigners bedding down where hundreds of tons of meat are sold every day.
So it's just after midnight and you can see the merchants already starting to arrive here at Smithfield. It's obviously it's the busiest meat market in the whole of London, but what is really going to affect them today is the hundreds of protesters that you can see that have gathered in their place of work.
Along the main avenue of the market, we have what we call RMs, cash customers, like coming up and buying meat. We won't have none of them, so we're going to lose more or less half our trade on the cash customers over these people. But at the end of the day, everyone's got their right to their own opinion. You know what I mean? Good luck to them. Get on with it.
To see this as disorganised disruption would be to misunderstand what this movement is about. Their strategy is one of relentless and peaceful protest, hitting the city where it hurts.
This is really disruptive for the people that work here. What are you saying to them?
Our message is that farmers and butchers are not our enemies. What we want is a sustainable and just transition to a plant-based food system, and that means compensating workers and supporting them into new sustainable jobs. So we're here very much with a message of love and a message of peace.
As the city wakes up this morning and as London braces for day 2 of climate action, few will know what has happened here overnight. But the Extinction and Animal Rebellions have made their mark already. Their protests may be polite, but they're not here to compromise. Ali Fortescue, Sky News.
Well, the Prime Minister has called Extinction Rebellion protesters uncooperative crusties, making these comments during a book launch yesterday. I'm afraid that the security people didn't want me to come along tonight because they said the road was full of uncooperative crusties and protesters of all kinds littering the road. I hope that when we go out from this place tonight and we are waylaid by inopportune nose-ringed climate change protesters, we remind them that she, Margaret Thatcher, was also right about greenhouse gases. Our climate change correspondent, Hannah Thomas-Peter, joins us now from Westminster. Interesting remarks from Mr Johnson there, Hannah. I suppose if Extinction Rebellion is all about trying to encourage governments to change their ways, they might have to up their tactics a little bit.
It's very hard for them to know what to do in terms of the scale of this protest, because I don't think they quite had the numbers that they were anticipating yesterday. Despite all of that, my sense is very strongly that Extinction Rebellion is simply not an organisation that's willing to engage in extensive criminal behaviour. They're not going to smash windows and cause widespread criminal disruption. They're very intent on peaceful, non-violent protest, and that is what they're hoping to do, to mass the numbers using those peaceful, non-violent techniques to force the government to listen and then to act. I'm at one of the sites, one of the 12 sites that was shut down around Westminster yesterday. I guess there's around 100 tents here, so they slept through the night. It wasn't fantastic weather for them. They must have been cold, but let's go and have a chat to some of them who've agreed to talk to me. Here they are over here. Hello there, you're live on Sky News.
Hello.
What was it like
Good
yesterday
morning.
then?
I was all right. It was a bit wet. But apart from that, yeah, no, it was nice. It was nice to get settled in and everything. Yeah, it was a bit tense at the start, but I think kind of mellowed out a little bit.
Why was it tense?
I mean, there was a few arrests going on, and we kind of couldn't get our tents set up, so we were worried we might lose the site. But then we kind of made it feel a bit more like home now. So yeah, can't complain.
And how long are you planning on being here for?
I personally am only planning on being here till Wednesday, but the action's hoping to take place for 2 weeks altogether.
And what about the risk of arrest? Have you considered that, and are you willing to do it?
I think everyone here has considered the risk of arrest. There's some roles that you can take that are obviously going to be more liable or likely to get arrested in, and some roles that are more supportive and less likely to. But I think everyone here is aware that there is always a risk of that, yeah.
Now, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, which you're camped next to, said yesterday that they understand the broad concern about climate change, but the government has declared a climate emergency and it has committed to a legally binding target of net neutral carbon emissions by 2050. Yeah. Does that count?
No, well, I mean, they've declared a climate emergency, but they've not actually taken any steps to kind of implement that strategy or whatever. And by 2050, that's too late in terms of tipping point, in terms of feedback loops. So it's going to be far too late to kind of save the planet in that sense and save all the terrible effects it's going to have on us because of the feedback loops like black frost in the Arctic and all that type of
warming
stuff.
Oceans
Yeah,
and
warming
so on.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's far too late, unfortunately. So that's why we have to do stuff like this. Like, no one really wants to be here. You know, I've had to miss loads of university to be here. I don't want to be here, but I just think it's really, really important that something is done. And this is the only way that seems to be having an impact. That's why the guys like you are here, because if we were just doing a march, you wouldn't take any notice. We have to go camp in the middle of London. Yeah.
I think building on that as well, what we're really looking for here is to get rid of token gestures. It is one thing to declare a climate emergency. It's a totally different thing to take steps to enact on that emergency. And waiting until 2050 just simply isn't good enough.
Thank you, guys. That is a refrain that we hear over and over again from Extinction Rebellion activists, that they're fed up of politicians saying the right things but not delivering when it comes to actions.
Hannah, thank you.
Well, let's head to speak to the Transport Secretary, shall we? Grant Shapps, he's standing by in central London for us, away from all of those protests, but he'll be well aware of them as Transport Secretary because of the disruption it's causing to the capital. Mr Shapps, good morning to you.
Morning. Actually, not very far away. They're just outside.
Did you get in OK?
You can walk around and do it that way. The roads are closed, and you know, for people who are going to work, trying to go to work this morning, it would be causing significant disruption. There are literally tents set up in the streets, in the middle of the streets, and I can't really see any reason why they should be allowed to stay there. If you or I parked a car there, it would be ticketed and probably towed away pretty quickly. So it doesn't seem right that they're just
at great cost, no less. At great cost, no less.
Indeed.
And the Prime Minister, speaking last night, was asked about Extinction Rebellion, and he said they are uncooperative crusties who should stop blocking the capital with their heaving, hemp-smelling bivouacs. I looked up bivouacs. It's basically a travelling, unsheltered camp. Do you agree with the Prime Minister?
Well, look, I mean, it's great that people feel passionate, and quite rightly so. But the bizarre thing about this whole protest is here they are in this case in the capital of the country, the sort of developed country in the world that is doing the most on this issue, that's already declared net zero for 2050, that's already seen a huge drop in its CO2 output, that's producing some of the time up to half of its energy with wind and solar. You know, I just last week at conference talked about bringing forward the end of the sale of petrol and diesel from 2040 to 2035. Yeah. So we are really proactive on it. It's I think they're in danger of losing support, though.
You respect what they're doing. You don't agree that they're uncooperative.
I don't believe they should be breaking the law.
They shouldn't be breaking the law. But the thing is, as Transport Secretary, you look at the disruption they're causing on the streets of London. They've blocked 2 main bridges. Yes. What are the government going to do about this? Because this is going to go on for 2 weeks. And we've been hearing from traders this morning at Spitalfields Market who can't work their shift. They're losing a huge amount of money. And that's just one example of 12 hotspots around the capital. So what are you going to do to get London moving again?
Absolutely. And look, I think this is the real issue. It's affecting people's livelihoods. I just watched the interview a moment ago, just before I came on. And, you know, there's a student there and it's, oh, this is, you know, you just got to come and do this. Yes, but you're actually destroying somebody else's livelihood in the process. And I think that is very, very wrong. And the Metropolitan Police, who've been sort of gearing up for this, they've known the protesters coming, and I think made 260 or 280 arrests yesterday, something in that region. I do think that they do need to ensure that the roads can keep flowing so that people like those traders in the market are able to get to work. Yeah, the police will certainly need to be reviewing their strategy very carefully and I think clearing the roads. No one should be able to set up a tent in the middle of the road
but it
without
looks like we've got 2 weeks of it. I tell you what, we've got a lot more of Brexit. Let's get on to that. Today, the